Manny Navarro, frequent guest of the program from The Athletic, covers the ACC and, of course, the Miami Hurricanes. And Manny, a really kind of interesting, odd week, I'm sure, especially covering the ACC. Knowing that these issues had been brewing, what was your initial reaction to this group of seven kind of, banding together and making some demands?
Well, it's not surprising that, the schools that feel pretty good about their football programs and see seeing the widening gap, so to speak, between the SEC and Big Ten and then everybody else, that they're going to want to try to find a resolution. So none of it was surprising. I'd had discussions, obviously, with a lot of administrators who said this was going on for a while. That everybody was looking into the grant of rights and trying to figure out, how much wiggle room is there in there? Is there any chance we could figure out a way to squeeze more money out of ESPN? Just trying to figure out some solution here, because pretty soon the gap's gonna be pretty wide, and so it didn't catch me off guard. Neither did the Magnificent Seven. I'd heard there's been quite a few schools that are sort of banding together to figure this out. But in the end, man, there really is no resolution to this. I think for the ACC schools, unless there's a desire for the SEC, even the Big 12 or somebody else really saying, okay, we think we can make our deals even better. And I don't see the Big 12 doing it. And obviously the SEC and Big 10 already have their deals done. Right. So, it's going to be a while before anything really happens in my mind.
So, Manny, what did you think? I guess, like you said, it's going to be a while before anything happens, but were you surprised at how much of their barking suddenly silenced in a matter of like a day? It went from like 100 to about 25 miles per hour by the end of the meetings there.
Yeah, it really did. And it's not surprising. I mean, look, what resolutions were there really, other than, hey, maybe we'll reward teams that win a little more? I mean, there's nothing else you can really do. I mean, lawyers have been looking at this grant of rights thing forever. So it's May. We're bored, right? We wish football was here. You need something to talk about. But it really, the reality is, in my opinion, until the Big Ten feels desperate enough where they feel they've got to go get a Clemson or a Florida State or North Carolina or Miami so that they can compete with the SEC for championships. Because let's face it, the bottom line is the SEC is where it's at in football. They're going to win the majority of the championships year in and year out. You might have an Ohio State or Michigan rise up one year. But this is the SEC's game. So until we get to that point where the Big Ten feels motivated, I honestly don't think there will be any serious movement. I mean, Brett Yormark is brilliant. I know he's trying to fix things with the Big 12. But the ACC teams might as well just stay where they're at, because the Big 12 is not going to all of a sudden produce a whole bunch more money to share and make it enticing for them. So it's basically, in my mind, Big 10 or bust here.
Manny, were you? I mean, I know that never the idea was let's get an 8th and 9th team here and bust this thing up and send everybody their separate ways, because again, that's probably even a worse lawsuit than just two teams leaving and moving on. But was it weird to think that, if there was a nuclear option, like schools like NC State and Virginia Tech would not definitely have a place to go? I mean, you would think that, Florida State, Clemson, UNC, Miami, they're probably all right. But after that, it starts to get a little murky for the other 10 teams in the league.
Yeah, I mean, it turned into a situation where the Big 12 found itself, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, after losing Texas and Oklahoma, essentially, you take off Clemson, Florida State, Miami, and North Carolina out of the ACC, and what do you have? What do you have? The Pac-12, basically? I mean, I'm not even sure. Pac-12 still has Oregon and Washington that can represent you pretty well. I think, obviously, this is a top-heavy, football-heavy push by the Florida States and Clemsons of the world, who just don't want to see their programs fall behind. And inevitably, like I said, I think by the time we get to about 2030, 2029, when the Big Ten sort of reevaluating itself and looking to renegotiate its deal, that's when I think more of this stuff may actually happen. And again, it's just going to depend on what place Clemson is. Is Dabo Swinney still the coach there? Is Florida State, have they taken what they accomplished last year and and move forward and been a consistently winning program? Has Miami gotten back to being Miami? I think all of those will be factors with whether or not we really see change, because there's no reason for them to change. I mean, those 16 schools are pretty much set and so much further along. Why invite anybody else to the party unless you really need it?
No, you're absolutely right. It's fun for people to fantasy book, right, and think about like, hey, what would this look like and all that, and you've been very clear, like nothing's going to happen, nothing's on the horizon, barring just some catastrophic shift in things. But if you were to just to kind of know the pulse of Miami fans, if you were to poll Miami fans in general about what they would like to see moving forward, or where they feel like they fit, that sort of thing, where they belong more so than in an ACC that's lagging behind, what would the most common response be, you think?
Well, I think for most Miami fans who don't pay a whole lot of attention to this, they'd say the SEC. They'd want to go play against Florida every year, and they'd hope Florida State would come along, and that would be the dream scenario. I think that's ideally what they would want. You'd have great games every week. You'd be in the premier conference. You'd recruit at an elite level. But, there really is no need for the SEC to do that. I mean, why invite Miami to the party? What do they bring to you that you don't already have? So, that's why I think this is Big Ten or bust. I think from a school administration standpoint, the way that they feel about things, I think they feel like they're a better fit for the Big Ten, especially on the academic side. And so I think you obviously have two different approaches there. The fans want one thing. I think the administration wants something else. It's going to be a while before anything happens.
Right. Yeah, it'd be interesting, if it did happen, but just on the Miami and Florida State end of it, I don't see, and it's not just Florida that wouldn't want them there. It's Georgia and Alabama and all these schools that are recruiting against them with that advantage of saying like, oh, you don't want to go play in the ACC. Like just
right.
To give them that without having maybe being forced into it, or the economics tell them that that's absolutely what you need to do. I just don't see them sitting around like the meetings going, how can we get these schools? Because they're enjoying especially with Florida State and Miami being down for as long as they have the last few years. Those are recruits that they've not really had to worry about losing them for quite some time.
Absolutely. You're at a huge advantage if you're Georgia, Alabama, and Florida, if you don't invite Miami and Florida State to the party. I mean, there's same thing with Clemson. You keep them out, you're going to continue to get the best players. I think, again, to me, the only thing that makes sense when you look at this is, and you look at recent history, right? For as much as the Big Ten makes profits well off of where their schools are located and have a great TV contract, when you start counting championships, it's the SEC, right? And then a couple from Clemson the last couple of years. So unless the Miami, Florida States, and Clemsons of the world continue or reach that championship level again, I don't see why there's just no motivation. At that point, I think the SEC would just be playing defense, to sort of keep those teams from going to the Big Ten.
So, Manny, that's kind of just where it is and where it's going to be for a little while. But I know spring ball wrapped up a while ago, and just as we're starting to enter this part of the off season, how do you just feel about the state of things with the portal additions and subtractions? How spring practices went. I know there's a lot of speculation there for a while about Tyler Van Dyke in Alabama, but now that things have sort of settled for Cristobal and company, how are you feeling about the Canes?
Well, I think they're going to be better up front. I think Mario did a good job between what he did in the portal and among the high school ranks. He got a couple 5-star offensive linemen and some really good quality guys. Javion Cohen was obviously starting for Alabama, 2-year starter for him, went out and got one of the best centers in the country, and Matt Lee from UCF. So, the interior side of the offensive line is going to be much improved. And, of course, Francis Mauigoa, who's a 5-star offensive tackle, he's probably going to be Miami's starting right tackle. So you put in 3 big physical bodies. Mario, he's an offensive lineman himself. That's where the game's really won and lost, especially at the championship level. And so I think, Tyler Van Dyke's going to have more time to throw. I think this offense is a better fit. Everything that they want to do in terms of being more air raid. And then on the defensive side of the ball, I think they're going to the right strategy with Lance Guidry. Just being a more aggressive defense that brings more pressure in creative ways. They don't have great cornerbacks, but they do have guys that can get to the quarterback. They do have some pretty talented defensive linemen. Guys that will definitely create havoc. So I think they're going to play to their strengths. I think they'll be a 7 or 8 win team this year, and then we'll see how Mario does recruiting in year 2. Can he continue to hang in top 10 classes? Can he stack the talent the way the SEC schools do? That'll be an interesting question going forward.
How do you think, and you mentioned Guidry, that they responded to, I mean, he did fast. He's not going to waste time. If the coordinators aren't working, they were gone after year 1, that they've responded as a whole staff to that, especially on the recruiting trail. Have you seen that turn up a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the guys that he went out and got are more scrappers. I think you look at his first go-around, just the coaches that he hired, the assistants that he hired across the board are guys who have been at premier program. Miami's not in a premier program right now. They almost need guys that have the mentality that they're at a G5 program, that they have to sort of find and develop talent and make those guys better. You're not always going to be cooking filet mignon when you're back there, and you got to sometimes work with some stuff that isn't top shelf. And I think they've taken that approach this recruiting cycle. They're really trusting their own evaluations. They're going after guys that these coaches really like. I don't think they're looking at the star rating as much as maybe they were a year ago when Mario was really just sort of taking advantage of year 1 and all the excitement, new guy. So we'll see. I think going forward, it's the right approach. They're running the right offense, the right defense. They're getting more of the guys who I think fit their scheme. And we'll see. We'll see what the results are. This program ultimately, the only way they're going to take a step forward, in my opinion, is by eliminating the embarrassing moments. They've had so many embarrassing moments over the last 5 or 6 years, losing to FIU, losing to Middle Tennessee State last year, losing at home to Duke by 24 points in football. Those things can't happen anymore. If you lose to Texas A&M or get beat by a really good Alabama team by 3 times, there's no shame in that. You're not anywhere near that. But it's the embarrassing moments that Mario Cristobal has to eliminate from having this program suffer.
Manny Navarro, theathletic.com, covers Miami and the ACC so well. Manny, thank you so much for hopping on the show.
Good talking to you guys. Take care.
There you go. Yeah,